Hey guys, it's me, TJ Kirk, the amazing atheist, here making a quick response to the progressive voice who made a response to my response and so on and so forth. It's really getting messy. I made a video a while back saying, don't vote. He made a video saying, fuck that, vote. I made a video saying, fuck that, don't vote. He made a video saying, fuck that, vote. And here's my next fuck that, don't vote thing. Now, I'm not going to play through his whole video like we have previously in this exchange because it's just getting way too confusing. Like his last video on the subject, if I hadn't been following it, I wouldn't have known what the fuck was going on. So I don't want to contribute to that. I'm just going to address a few key points he made. Now, a lot of the disagreements we've had, they were very much based on just sensibilities. Do you value this or do you value that? And it's just totally subjective value judgments. I'll let you check out the debate that we've had up until now. I'm going to put all the relevant links down in the description section below. And on the sensibility issues, you can just decide which one of us you emotionally side with. Because it's really just an emotional appeal. But there are a few things that I want to substantively address. Now, one of the things I want to substantively address is I said I lived in a red state. He said, well, think about Texas. That was a red state until Beto O'Rourke came along. Fair enough, but we didn't have no Beto O'Rourke in this last election cycle in Louisiana. There was no Beto-esque figure that was going around Louisiana changing hearts and minds. I don't remember who Steve Scalise's opponent was for his congressional seat, but I did look her up a while back to see what she was about, and I found that first of all, she looked like she'd been beaten half to death with the ugly stick. Not that that should matter, but of course it does. Another thing is she was borderline illiterate. She had zero charisma. There was no way she was going to even come close to usurping Steve Scalise. And sure enough, she didn't. He got 75% of the vote or something crazy like that. Huge percent of the vote. Wasn't even a contest. I said that I don't care about Louisiana ballot initiatives. And I went and looked just now because he's like, you should really know what your ballot initiatives were. And so I decided to go and look and see what was on the ballot that I missed out on. And honestly, there are a couple of things here that I might have wanted to vote on. Amendment 1 would prohibit felons from running for office for 5 years, which I disagree with. I would have voted no. But yes won with 75%. Amendment 2 really blew my mind. It requires a unanimous jury verdict for felony trials. Like, what? That wasn't already the case? What the fuck is wrong with you, Louisiana? Anyway, apparently now it passed. So Louisiana has joined the rest of the civilized world in needing a unanimous jury verdict in felony trials. So, yay, I guess. That passed. And then there's a bunch of stuff that I really don't care too much about. The next few amendments are just nothing really important. Those two are really the big ones that actually would have mattered to me. And one of them went against me, against how I would have voted. One of them went for how I would have voted. But based on the numbers, I wouldn't have made a difference in either one of them. So, me voting no on Amendment 1 wouldn't have stopped it, wouldn't even have come close. Me voting yes on Amendment 2 would not have been a decisive factor. It already won by a comfortable percentage. So it really wouldn't have made a difference. Really wouldn't have made a lick of difference. But I do kind of wish I had have known what those were beforehand. I just didn't bother because I knew ultimately I wasn't going to vote. But maybe I should have known. It's a fair enough point. So another thing that you said, that Progressive Voice said, is that if I'm not going to vote, I should, instead of not voting, I should vote third party. And I asked him, well, what the fuck is the point of voting third party? And he said, well, if a third party gets 5% of the vote nationally, then they get federal funding and they're considered a national party at that point. And he was like, oh, I'm surprised you didn't know that. You're so misinformed. I actually did know that. But it seems like there's something he doesn't know, which is that, or maybe he does know and he just didn't mention it because it looks bad or something. I don't know why it wasn't addressed, but the Green Party in the last election, the 2016 election, they got, remember, the benchmark for federal funding is 5%. They got to get 5% to get there. And the way he frames it, it sounds like, oh man, if only you had voted for a fucking third party, then they could get 5% of the vote. And it's like, oh, okay. The only problem with that is it's a fucking fantasy. It's a fantasy. Because you know what percent of the vote the Green Party got in the last election? It was, 4%? 4%? No, it wasn't 4. It was like 3%. No, actually it was 2%. I'm sorry. It was only 1%. It was only one. Oh wait, no, actually, I'm forgetting something. I forgot. It was only 0.5%. They only got I'm faking you out again. It's 0.4%. That's the real number. 0.4%. In other words, nowhere fucking near, nowhere even vaguely approaching 5% of the fucking vote. Not even close. Not even close. Not even fucking close. And you know what? The closest that the Green Party ever got to 5% of the vote was Ralph Nader, who got like 2.5% of the vote. He was the most successful candidate their party had ever seen, and he only got them halfway to where they needed to be to qualify for that federal fucking money and to be considered a national party. And I don't know, maybe even get invited to the debates. Ooh, the debates. Nope, didn't even get halfway there. And you know what? I don't know if Progressive Voice is old enough to remember, but Ralph Nader at the time, after he got that 2.5% of the vote, or 2.7 or whatever it was around there, he was despised by Democrats. Absolutely despised as a spoiler. Oh my God, you spoiled it. We could have had Gore. We were this close to Gore. But stupid fucking Ralph Nader. Stupid fucking Ralph Nader. So even if I were to go vote for a third party and a third party were to get a significant chunk of the vote, I would still be blamed for, oh my God, we were this close to Hillary. If only you'd voted for Hillary. So it's just a shifting of the goalposts, because you're going to get shit. If a third party gets a significant chunk of the vote and the mainstream party that's the closest to them loses, then everyone in that party is going to blame those third party people and say, fuck you. You lost us this election, you pieces of shit. How dare you actually vote your conscience instead of voting for the team? All that matters is the team, God damn it. Don't you know that? Another thing we disagreed about that I think could actually be talked about in a substantive way is Supreme Court justices. Now he says, Trump's going to stack the court with Supreme Court justices, and that's a bad thing. Well, I pointed out, and it was never responded to in any substantive way, by the way, that the pendulum is always swinging left and right, and sometimes a president is going to get lucky, and they're going to get to appoint a disproportionate amount of fucking Supreme Court justices. And they're going to be able to change the balance of the court. Trump happens to be one of those presidents. But as long as the system is the same, as long as our system for appointing the Supreme Court justices remains the same, that's always going to be the case. It's always just going to be a game of musical chairs. And I said, maybe we should look into some way to address that system. And he said, no, we shouldn't do that, because then it's just a game of political football like everything else, where both sides are trying to change it to something that benefits them. Well, how about we just change it to something that doesn't give either side an advantage and is more fair? Maybe something that is, responsive to the electorate. Maybe something that people could actually go out and vote for. I don't know. Seems like a good idea to me. And then it's not about who's president. It's about what people can capture the hearts and minds of the American voters. But we're scared of direct democracy. We always have been. Anyway, one of the things that you said as well is that, if Trump's court gets a hold of a Medicare for all bill, like let's say in the future, in 2020, Bernie Sanders wins or some progressive wins, they pass Medicare for all, and it becomes the law of the land, and of course the Republicans inevitably issue a constitutional challenge to it, and that goes before the Trump-stacked Supreme Court. They're definitely going to strike it down. Definitely going to strike it down because that's just how they fucking are, and we know this. It's a fact. It could be you could take it to the fucking bank. And I said, a lot of times these conservative justices, they get in there and people think they're going to be super conservative and they're going to govern a certain way, and then they just don't. They just don't. Because when they're not subject to all the political pressure of needing to climb the ladder, when they've reached the top of the ladder and they're basically the supreme power in the land, then you find out who they really are. And, that argument of mine was not really addressed in a substantive way, but maybe it's because I didn't provide specific examples. So I'd like to provide a few specific examples, a couple of specific examples of that. So the first example I'd like to talk about is Anthony Kennedy. He was appointed to the Supreme Court by Ronald Reagan, and he won unanimous confirmation from the United States Senate. So this is a Reagan appointee to the court. Ronald Reagan, the guy who, when the AIDS crisis happened, he basically ignored it to almost a criminal extent and just let tons of people die because they were gay. He's just like, I don't care. I don't care if a bunch of fucking gay people die. It's their punishment from God. Fuck them. That was Reagan's attitude. This is his Supreme Court fucking justice. And this is the guy who was just replaced by Brett Kavanaugh, by the way. This is the guy who voted. He was actually he wrote the majority opinion for the case that decided that gay marriage would be the law of the land. Reagan appointee decided that gay marriage should be the law of the land. Another example, more recent example, or an example of a more recent appointee anyway. John Roberts, who's the Chief Justice of the United States Supreme Court. Deciding vote and author, once again, of the majority of opinion regarding Obamacare. The constitutionality of Obamacare was challenged, and this ultra-conservative George W. Bush appointed Chief Justice of the United States Supreme Court said, nope, Obamacare is constitutional. Sorry. And the conservatives who had been championing him all of a sudden were just like, fuck this guy. Fuck him. He's horrible. We hate him now. Well, why did he vote that way? Why did he vote against his party? Because of legacy. Because he didn't want to be the guy that said, fuck Obamacare, I'm going to kill it. Because he knew it was popular. He knew a lot of people liked it. At least they liked a lot of the individual provisions of it. It seems like people like the provisions of Obamacare more than they actually like Obamacare. Go figure. So that's two examples of Supreme Court justices appointed by conservative presidents who, when it came time to vote on a huge issue that was going to change the face of America forever, both of them said, you know what? Let's go with the liberals on this one. Why? Legacy. That's why. So that's a couple of things. I feel like those are the major things I wanted to address in this video. A lot of the other stuff, like I said at the beginning of this video, just kind of boiled down to sensibilities. Do you think this is a big deal, or do you think this is a big deal? Do you play the short-term game, or do you play the long-term game? My long-term game is if the ACA has to fail for America to ultimately embrace Medicare for all, which it already has, by the way. The American public has already embraced it. We need to convince the people in power to embrace it. We need to convince them to champion it so that we can actually get it. I think that Obamacare going away is not going to hinder that at all. I think it might in fact help it because I think that you're more likely to be looking for a solution when things are awful than when they're just barely passable. And Progressive Voice disagrees with that. He thinks that Obamacare is a good stepping stone to Medicare for all. And, who you agree with on stuff like that ultimately is just going to come down to what set of sensibilities you have. Do you have sensibilities more like mine, or do you have sensibilities more like his? I don't think there's much point in continuing to argue stuff like that. But as far as the substantive things I wanted to address about his response, I think I've got most of them in what I just said. I might have missed a few. I probably did, but those are the things that really stuck with me that I really wanted to say something about. And if he wants the last word on this, he can absolutely have it. He can absolutely take it. I'm done arguing about it. I'm ready to move on. And I do want to thank him, by the way, for not making fun of the fact that I kept saying single payer in my video when I meant to say public option. Totally different things. For some reason, I started off saying public option like a fucking sane person, but then I started talking about single payer when I really meant public option. So thank you for not being so petty as to point that out, if you even noticed. I'm sure you probably did. But yeah, overall, I think it's been an interesting discussion. I'm glad we had it, and I don't really think I disagree with Progressive Voice as much as he thinks I do. I think that he feels some pressure to try to really differentiate where he stands and where I stand. I don't think that we're really as far apart as he's kind of trying to make it out to be, especially in his most recent video. But I guess that's how you get the big YouTube views, by manufacturing some sort. We disagree more than we actually do. I don't think we disagree that much. I think there's just a few issues where our sensibilities about... I think we want to get to the same place. I think we both have a very similar goal in mind. We just have very different ideas about the road forward to get there. And I think I have a better path forward. He thinks he has a better path forward. It's going to be up to you guys to decide who you think is right. And ultimately, you can decide it by either saying, I'm going to go out and I'm going to vote for the Democrat, regardless of whether or not I think that they're actually a good candidate. I'm going to go out there, I'm going to vote for if it comes down to Republican establishment versus Democratic establishment, I'm going to vote for Democratic establishment even if they don't represent my views. That's how you decide that you agree with him. The way you decide you agree with me is you see an establishment Democrat running for office and you say, nope, give me something better. I'll vote then. And it's ultimately up to you. It's your choice. And I think we've had a very fruitful and interesting discussion on this subject matter, but now it's time to come to a close on it. So I'll gladly cede the last word to Progressive Voice. Go check out his channel. If he chooses to respond to this, he's free to do so, obviously. If not, then I guess this will be the last word. Peace the fuck out.